Are you about to make a costly mistake with the biggest retirement asset you have? You need to be aware of the pros and cons before you roll over your 401k. And in this video, I will help you and give you some tips so you don't make the same mistakes others have made. Before we get there, I'd like you to subscribe to our channel and hit the notifications bell so you're alerted to when we post new videos. So I have to start off with full disclosure. It's not always the right move to roll over your 401k, but you need to be fully informed before you make that decision one way or the other, because it's an irrevocable decision that could impact the rest of your retirement. So first and foremost, you need to understand the 401k or the retirement plan, the 403b or the 457 plan, whatever you've been in, and its role with you up until this point in time. It's been a fantastic investment vehicle in that you've had the opportunity to systematically dollar cost average, which is to put in the same amount of money each and every time systematically, and hopefully you've picked, some decent investments and you've seen the money grow to such an extent that now you're in a position where you can consider retirement. But now the game changes, and we need to talk about that looking forward. Let me put this in a little bit different perspective. During your working years, the goal was to accumulate as much money as possible so that you can now watch this video and think, hey, can I retire? Will it happen now? Will I run out of money? Now you have to look at that asset in such a way as what can it do for you, and think about it in the total planning perspective. Now, when we think about the 401k and rolling it over, there may actually be another option to rolling it over and the pros and cons. And it may be, and there are still some companies that have this available, which is to either lump sum, take it all out and roll it over, or take a pension. That is a huge decision because it changes the landscape dramatically. Before you make that decision, there are a number of questions you need to ask with regards to the planning. And this is why we put together the 7-step planning process that we have with our clients. But you need to ask the question and coordinate it with other pieces, such as, which option will I take? Will I provide for my surviving spouse? When I do die, how will he or she still continue to live his or her life? Which one of the 567 different Social Security strategies should I take and when, depending upon when I do take my pension? How much do I have other retirement assets, and will there be required minimum distributions taken? And how will that impact, or when will that impact my pension? How do you reduce the impact of taxes, and how do you take care of the rest of the family members? These are all very important questions that you need to address, and it does beg the question of planning. I can't give you the answer right now as to whether or not it's going to make sense for you to roll it over or take it as a pension if you have that option. But you need to go through the planning process and talk to a good financial advisor to find out what the best choice is here, because this could be one of the greatest decisions you make, or one of the worst decisions you make entering into retirement. Now we're going to go right into the pros and cons, but before we do that, I think it's really important to understand that there are costs associated with doing business. There is an underlying cost within the funds in your 401k plan, and there's a cost for, if you were to roll it over, of using a financial advisor, or underlying costs associated with those investments. And it's really important to make sure you understand what those costs are. I do not believe that your decision will be driven by what is the cheapest way for you to do it. You should be driven by what is the best approach and strategy, and do I need somebody on my team in order to help me navigate this as I go into retirement? But it's really important to understand the costs before you make this decision. Now, I'm going to list 4 pros, sort of off the top of my head. I'm sure that you can add or subtract to this list as you like, but I'm going to do 4 for you today. The first is, and for many who might consider rolling it over into their own self-directed IRA or using a financial advisor and having him or her help you direct that IRA, is that you may have more investment choices and you may have more categories and types of investments than you would in a traditional 401k or 403b plan. It's really important, particularly as this landscape of investing changes and as you now are thinking about generating income from this big retirement asset, that your investments are in alignment with your goals. And it may be that the investment choices you currently have within the plan when you were working may not be the right ones for you, or may not provide, again, the type of flexibility that you may want as you're looking to set forth in this new chapter of life. The second pro for rolling it over has less to do with investing and more to do with taking control of your retirement assets and minimizing the potential of a 50% penalty. So the 50% penalty could come around when you reach age 72. It used to be 70 and a half, but when you reach age 72 now, and you need to take out the required minimum distribution. In essence, you have to take out approximately 3.5% of all of your combined pool of retirement assets. And if you don't take out the right amount, the IRS can impose a 50% penalty for the amount that you should have taken out. And what I have seen a lot of in my 32 years is that people will come to me with 4, 8, 12 different IRAs, 401ks, old 403bs, whatever, and each one of those custodians has to push out legally to you a piece of paper indicating what it is you need to do, and it can be very, very confusing. So consolidation is a real key to taking control as you're going into retirement now, so that you don't have all this stuff all over the place. And from an investment perspective, consolidation means you probably have a better handle from 30,000 feet in terms of what your investments look like and what adjustments you need to make. So the second pro really is the ability to do some consolidation for a number of different reasons. The third pro, if you will, is something you may not have thought about since you signed up for your 401k plan. I've seen it before on that 401k when a new client comes in and we talk about the beneficiaries on the plan, and they hadn't touched it in 15, 25 years. And Aunt Molly, who was a contingent beneficiary, passed away, or the ex-wife or ex-husband is still on the plan because you didn't make the change. Beneficiary designations is one of the keys to proper planning looking forward. Very different than just money management. So by moving your 401k to an IRA, many times you will find you have more choices with regards to who to designate, both for your primary and your contingent beneficiary. So if a part of your estate planning and a part of your overall planning is to make sure you take care of you, your spouse, and your kids, you might want to consider rolling it over into the IRA. There may be more choices there than what you currently have. And the final pro to doing this, and I'm going to call it passive versus active. Now, for most people, they sort of set it and forget it. They let it fly. In other words, they chose that one default fund, or they chose that allocation with 5 or 6 or 8 different funds, and they continued to contribute all along the way and never touched it. And for some that may have been good, but now that you move into retirement, Now that your objectives have changed, now that you're looking to generate income, not so much take on a lot of risk, you really need to be in a position to be more active with your money management and potentially make minor changes to it. And this is where, if you're able to do it on your own, roll it into your own self-directed IRA or hire a financial advisor to help you understand what your goals are and to make the minor adjustments along the way to the portfolio when necessary. So I recently wrote the 4th book, as I had decided after the first one not to write anymore again. I lied. But as a result of writing the 4th one, we came up with a way for you to identify how well you have prepared for this next chapter in life. So in our banner, we have a quiz. It's a quick 2-minute quiz. Once you fill it out, we'll score it for you, tell you which of the 3 retirement stages you are in, how well prepared you are. I'll get you a first chapter of my book, and also to give you some more clarity and to help you along the road, we'll also share with you a couple of worksheets. So fill out that quiz. So let's go into the cons, why it might not be a good idea to roll it over. In the event that you have some sort of financial liability and you have creditors coming after you, your 401k is protected if you leave it in there. In certain states, depending upon where you live, if you do roll over that IRA, it may be that you lose some of that creditor protection. So before you get there, find out and figure out whether or not that's a concern for you. The second con is you may be able to delay that required minimum distribution. So let me back up for a moment. One of the questions that I get from my clients is, when can I retire? And what kind of income can I generate and what do I need? Because the big question is, will I outlive my money, right? So it may be for some, they may be better off to defer their retirement past the age of 72. Now it's interesting, AARP did a study, I think it was a couple of years ago, where they showed a majority of people who were reaching their normal retirement ages, 66, 67, were deferring their retirement. And the number one reason was they didn't have enough money. So if you find yourself in that situation, what you may want to do is continue to work, if your organization allows you to, right? Past the age of 72. And if you are still working and you are less than a 5% owner of the business, that's important, then you do not have to start taking your required minimum distributions. It's a key part of the overall planning. And again, the planning will answer the question for you here. This isn't an investment decision. This isn't a 401k decision. It really is a planning decision of what you are going to do with regards to income and this next chapter. And the final con is, if you're retiring early and you leave the money in the 401k plan, you have the ability to avoid the 10% penalty. There are a couple of IRS codes that are out there that will allow you to do that. And we can go into it in a different video. I don't want to get into that type of detail in the weeds right now, but it's important to understand that if you retire early and you think you need income from that 401k plan, then you might want to consider not rolling it over just yet, because if you took the money out of a rollover IRA, you'll get hit with a 10% early penalty, and depending upon how much money you take out, that could be very costly. So consider that and be very wise about that. And again, it gets back to the planning. And with regards to the planning, I've mentioned here, our 7-step process. Be sure to take a look at our playlist that takes a look at our 7-step process.